Leon Compton in the chair this morning. Great to have your company. We'll get to more of your texts coming up for you in just a little while. 0438 922 936. If you'd like to get in touch, right, let's find out a bit more about Hydrowood. They're going to national markets to try and raise some money. And what they do is interesting. They don't find timber from forests. They find it from what were forests, but have been submerged underwater for decades. Bring it up, put it on a barge, export to markets around Australia and around the world. Our guests this morning, David Wise and Andrew Morgan, Executive Directors and Founders of Hydrowood. Andrew, David, good morning to you.
Morning, Leon. How are you?
Lovely to see you again. I tried to paint a picture. I'm not sure how well I did it. Andrew Morgan, describe what might be happening on your barge on Pyman this morning.
Yeah, so if you can imagine a forest in a valley, and 30, 40 years ago, that valley was inundated for hydroelectricity. So a dam was put in one end, and as that water level went up, that forest went underwater. So what we're looking at is an underwater forest that was basically hidden when those dam waters came up. And we came along 10 years ago and had this crazy idea that those timbers, that forest, is probably still okay. It's probably still sound. We can use these products for building, flooring, construction and furniture. And so we went and did a bit of a trial, and we tested it all out. And I guess the rest is history. We now know that timber is sound. We know now that we can extract it with this excavator with on a barge that has got a chainsaw on the end of it. So it's a big boom that reaches down into the water. It cuts the tree cleanly, brings it up to the barge, and we take that barge back to our landing site, and then we mill that timber into products, and that product is now around Australia and in some cases around the world.
What's the timber that you're looking for, David? What are you looking for
specifically?
specifically?
Well, we do get a fair bit of what we call Hydrowood oak, but it's Tasmanian oak, so Regnans, obliqua, and some of those log sizes are just fantastic. So we actually top out in the size that we can pull up. We can pull up about a 9-ton log, so we're getting fantastic big timbers. We're getting celery top pine, sassafras, blackheart sassafras, myrtle, blackwood. It's basically a wet rainforest that we're harvesting that's gone underwater.
Huon pine?
We do get some arisings of Huon pine, but not a lot. They did cut a lot of the Huon pine out in the early 80s before the dam flooded. The water levels came up and the Huon pine logs floated down to the dam wall, and they did recover a lot of it.
Do you know what you've got? How good are you on the sounder? Do you know what you've got coming up before you start cutting it, or is that just a sort of the exciting feeling of a prospector?
You can sort of see the form of it. Celery top pine's really obvious. It looks like a Christmas tree. Myrtle has its own distinct shape, as does Tas oak. They look pretty similar. But some of them, like some of the rarer species, we get like leatherwood and cheesewood and those sorts of things. It's really hard to tell until you actually get on the landing and start slicing it up.
And there's certainly an excitement about that reveal. So when those trees are coming up, you don't know what you're going to get. So we've had, when we had guests out on the lake, that expectation that it is a Huon pine or it is a beautiful blackheart sassafras, there's a really nice story to it.
Your mornings around Tasmania, if you've been watching the series alone, you might want to imagine what it would look and feel like out on your barge and exporting or picking up that timber and taking it off to market, because the place you operate, and my listeners tell me that it's Lake Pyman, and I'm in my mind that's the place that a loan's happening. I'm told you guys have signed a confidentiality agreement, so I won't talk too much more about that. But if you're trying to get a picture in your head of what's happening, that's the sort of place it's going on. Why do you need more money?
Cutting timber and milling it and then storing it takes a lot of capital. So this is a little bit like whiskey. All the cost is at the front end. You do all the work at the front end. We then rack it and dry it, put it in a shed, and we leave it to dry for 12 months, a year, 2 years. And we want to get more of this product out to market.
But you've been doing this for 10 years.
Yep.
So you're in a sort of you're mature, you've got a barge, you've got an excavator, you know how to do it. Why more money now, Andrew?
I guess it's what we've done in the last 10 years is really de-risk the project. So it's always been in a pre-commercial phase, and listeners might be surprised at that, but really what we've been doing is a lot of research and development about how to extract the timber, how to extract it, how to dry it, how to mill it, and then at what points in the market are people interested in these products, and then proving to architects and specifiers in particular that this timber will perform as expected, just like any other timber. And of course, architects and specifiers aren't going to come in and specify something that they don't trust, because you need to have that product in a floor or on walls and have it in situ in the environment for a number of years before they go, okay, this product does perform as we expect. And so we've been really trying to de-risk all of those aspects of the whole project all the way along.
And so what do you want to do? I mean, do you want more barges in the same lake? Do you want to go to new lakes? What are you thinking, David?
At the moment, Lake Pyman's good for us, and we can. The bottleneck in the process isn't the barge. We've got really efficient at harvesting. When we first started, we were bringing lots and lots of stuff to the landing that we didn't need, but now we've really refined it. The bottleneck in our process is actually the shed. So we're going to put more wood in the shed, rack it out. And we bring it inside. We don't let it dry outside because we want to keep it away from wind and sun because our wood doesn't have any sap in it. It's got water, so we actually slow the drying process down by bringing it inside.
How does the performance of the timber change if something's been underwater for 30 years? How does the performance of that timber
It's
get
really
altered?
interesting. We did a heap of work with the uni on this in terms of organising the drying process. We pulled the first log out in Angra, I think it was October 2015.
It wasn't angry.
It wasn't angry. It was a happy tree.
I can imagine it would have been fairly joyous when that first log came up.
So we cut into say a 25 mil board, and we overcut that to say 28, 29 mil to end up with a 25, and then we'll rack it out in our shed in Hagley now for a full 12 months. And once it's dried, it gets down to a moisture content of about 18 or 19%. Then, for uses of furniture, say, we'll kiln it down, or flooring, we'll kiln it down to about 10%, which is industry standard. Or if you wanted to use it for boat building or an outside use, you wouldn't kiln it. You just use it as it was at that point. So once it's a dried board, it looks like any other timber. You couldn't tell the difference.
And when the uni did do a lot of trials on and they were comparing it with terrestrial timbers, they really didn't find a lot of significant difference. It is just timber. But with that unique provenance, and also in these species that are becoming more and more restricted in terms of access from terrestrial harvesting.
Your mornings around Tasmania, and you're welcome to join us. We're talking about the Hydrowood. So you go to Lake Pyman, you get a barge, you start grabbing timber from under the water. It's been there for 30 years. You then cut it, dry it, and sell it to market. The people behind that project want to raise money from capital markets and have chosen an interesting way to do it. You're not listing publicly. I don't think you're big enough probably to think about that, Andrew. But you are using an ASIC-approved process. What is it?
Yeah, so I guess it's a stepping stone to listing. You're right, we're not big enough. So it's defined as equity crowdsourced funding. So it's something that Malcolm Turnbull brought in a number of years ago. So your listeners might be familiar with crowdfunding. So, when there's a case or an idea, people can go crowdfunding. That's reasonably unregulated. You can pledge $1,000 and you get a fluffy bear. With this is actually regulated by ASIC, the Australian Securities and Investment Commission, and by committing to invest, you actually get a share of shares in the company. So
and
you
the
actually
share's
own part of the
tradable. So I put in $1,000. Is my share going to become tradable then?
No, not publicly. Not for some years. You could be able to sell it to the other shareholders, but you're actually buying shares in a company through our broker on market in Sydney. So
do I get access to the revenue streams from the company?
Yes. Yeah. Yes, you do. You get a dividend.
So you'll get dividends on a when we issue dividends, you would receive dividends proportionate to your shareholding.
How much money do you want to raise?
So the maximum you can raise with equity funding is 5 million. So we're going after that 5 million. And we've been open for 48 hours in terms of expressions of interest, and we've been blown away by the concept and by the interest we've got. One of the reasons why we really liked this model was the number of people who have said, we love this concept, we'd love to be part of it, we'd like a bit of Hydrowood. It's a retail product, it resonates with people. And we think this way, we're innovative, we've come up with this idea, and this equity crowdfunding seems innovative as well. So it suits our personality in terms of, trying to chase a different source of funding.
You could have gone to a private equity firm, or you could have gone to private investors, got a few of them together and solved your problems with the click of a fingers. Why didn't you choose that option?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's really interesting. A lot of the people that are actually expressing interest and committing to the project are actually our end users. So furniture makers, designers, architects are actually then going to buy a share in our company Hydrowood and then use the product. So it's a really nice way to tie it all together. So we can invite them down to the lake. They can see the logs coming out. They can then buy some timber from a company they don't share of, and then produce a product. It's a really nice mix.
And potentially contribute to their own revenue streams down
Correct.
the track. Your mornings around Tasmania. My guests this morning, David Wise and Andrew Morgan, executive directors and founders of a group called Hydrowood. They're in the markets at the moment looking for money using a process we've heard of crowdfunding. We understand how the sort of public listing works. This is different. It's shares in a business that's regulated by ASIC, and $5 million is the quest. Typically, the people it's been open 48 hours, when people are putting their hand up to jump in, what sort of scale are they jumping in at? 500, 1,000?
So minimum buy-in's $500, and we've got there's people on the list who have expressed interest for 150,000 plus. So they are obviously high net worth individuals, and again, we're only expressions of interest, but we seem to think the average expression at the moment is around the $10,000 mark. And that's where the retail investor can cap out at 10,000.
On mornings, I use this is from JB in Hobart, I use some Hydrowood myrtle as a feature species in a bookcase I built several years ago. A beautiful red-pink timber, looks magnificent, sandwiched between some dark Tassie oak, but it did make a god-awful smell when I ran it through the thicknesser. I will use it again, though, says JB in Hobart. Is there something that happens when timber's underwater when you start shaving it down?
Yeah, when it's fresh, before it gets kilned, it can have a little bit of a tone to it. But once it's dried, it doesn't emit any odour. But no, I'm glad your listener enjoyed using some timber. We have found that myrtle too has been really interesting. Some, depending on where on the lake we are, it depends how dark it is. But some of the myrtles has been really dark, and some of it's been quite a bit lighter. So it depends where we are, because the lake's nearly 40 kilometres long. So, yeah, it's quite interesting the difference you get as you travel down.
It's been interesting to talk to both of you. Good luck this morning. How much time do you actually spend out at the lake and on the barge, or is that a job handled by others now?
Look, not enough. We've got a great team down there who do the harvesting. We tend to get over there when we're hosting. Probably spend more time over there in summer than winter.
Well, indeed, you'd want your possum fur gloves. Mornings around Tasmania. Just a quick one for you, Andrew. You have also been involved, if I'm not mistaken, we've spoken before about exporting whole logs off the wharf at Macquarie Point. We heard news, and I think you spoke to Rebecca Hewitt about it yesterday. We've heard news that now China's reopening its tariff barriers or bans on Tasmanian whole exports of timber, or Australian whole exports. What significance will that have in the Australian market, do you think?
Look, I think it was a good announcement. It's great to have another market, but the speed at which that market closed in 2019, I think we'll see people very cautious about entering back into that market. So, we were exporting bulk vessels, not of Hydrowood, but of burnt salvage timbers, terrestrially harvested. And I don't think we'll see bulk shipments turn around quickly. I think we'll see people be a little bit cautious, probably maybe push in with a few containers, understand what the new regulations are around the phytosanitary and the quarantine requirements of the Chinese government are. So it's good news. Everyone wants more markets, but I think it's not a quick turnaround, and we're going to have those same levels that we saw back in the 2016, 17. I think it'll be a few years before we see those sorts of levels again.
Your mornings to both of you. Thank you for coming in this morning. It's David Wise, Andrew Morgan from Hydrowood. Thanks for the chat.
Thanks, Lon.
Cheers.
Just a reminder as well, you need to, before you're doing any investment, it's like we say with medical stuff, the advice is general in nature only. If you want to think about this business and investing in it, you need to do your own research. You need to read the prospectus that's up online and think very carefully about whether or not it might be right for you.